So it's Troy, Gwen, Robin. Johanna's there? You see Johanna?
No, but she's down, so we can start.
Okay.
Oh, Gwen's.
Yeah, it's Gwen.
So we can start.
You wanted to switch them?
Well, just to make sure.
Let's go,
Because,
people.
okay, so for your reference, these we're presuming that they passed the bill. So you see where it starts. We all know why we're here today. Jump into this.
I said, who doing Ways and Means?
Sorry, next page.
When? I said,
And then you resume with let's discuss the facts. So ignore this paragraph.
This, okay. Do this, and then get to let's discuss the facts. Okay.
Well, I mean, you still start with this.
Right, but this will be the second page. Gotcha. Thank you.
So Johanna was going to do education.
Yeah. Anybody?
Education, if Johanna's not here.
She on her way?
she's a little ways down, so she went through her.
Yeah, she'll be able to jump in. Ooh. Look, I know you Southerners are not talking about heat.
Yeah, well,
We're from the South. Don't mean we like it.
Just start.
Don't mean we like it.
Everybody ready?
Yeah, we ready.
Okay.
That's right.
I was all loud in the mic.
You all right? 40 seconds.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus and proud representative of New York's 9th Congressional District, located in central and southwest Brooklyn. I want to say thank you to First Vice Chair Carter, Congresswoman Hayes, Congresswoman Moore, and Congresswoman Kelly, as well as all of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus here present, for joining me at this critical and pivotal moment for our nation. We all know why we're here today. We all know that it is to stand in opposition to Donald Trump's one big ugly bill. As it turns out, we're not the only ones who have problems with it. Only moments ago, Republicans failed to pass the vote they needed to get the big ugly bill to the House floor. They failed because House Republicans are ceaselessly paralyzed by their internal chaos and addiction to dysfunction. It's an embarrassment, but I digress. So let's discuss the facts. If this bill passes through our chamber, then we will see Medicaid ripped from more than 15 million Americans. We will see food ripped out of the hands of children through nearly $200 billion in SNAP benefit cuts, which will impact as many as 6 million black children and teens across this nation. We will see the deficit balloon by $3.3 trillion. That's trillion with a T over the next decade. Hospital and healthcare centers in diverse and rural communities will close. 5 million children, 51% of all black children, will lose eligibility for the full child tax credit, and so many other atrocities that have been hidden within the 1,000-page mega bill will rise out of the woodwork and strike American lives. Make no mistake, Trump's bill is going to tear apart the social safety nets millions of Americans depend on just to live, and that pain will not discriminate. Black or white, Republican or Democrat, this bill is coming for you and your family. And it's a simple truth that contempt for working families is hardwired into the administration's DNA. And their budget reflects that with stunning clarity. But I assure you, the conscience of the Congress is clear. We recognize the villainous budget for what it is, just as we recognize those who support it for the villains they are. So do the American people. They've called on the House to stop this legislation in its tracks. And we can stop it. 4 Republicans take a stand. Let me reiterate, 4 Republicans out of 220 are all that we need to block the big, ugly bill. Unfortunately, I have my doubts that anyone beyond the usual suspects, let alone 4 Republicans, have the moral or intestinal fortitude necessary to do so. We have seen this story play out too many times before, and so I am certain we'll find out shortly just how many congressional Republicans would rather steal health care and food aid from millions of Americans, blow up the federal deficit beyond repair, betray every principle they need to stand for, then oppose Donald Trump's will and that of his billionaire donors. We will find out how many of them would choose to hurt their communities instead of hurting the president's feelings. We'll find out who among them are public servants and who are Donald Trump's servants.
All right.
Well, they may be scared of him, but we are certainly not. We are going to the floor and we are going to fight this bill. And if it passes, we're going to tell the American people exactly who hurt them. It's been a long, long list. And with that, it's my honor and privilege to ask the first vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Troy Carter of Louisiana, to bring his comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to all of my courageous colleagues for standing at a time when America needs us most. I want to thank you all, press, for joining us. Thank our illustrious chairwoman for convening us today for this important conversation about Republicans' harmful one big, ugly bill. The bottom line is that this legislation will hurt Americans across the country, Republicans and Democrats, but our colleagues don't seem to realize they're not strong enough, bold enough, or bad enough to stand up against Donald Trump, even when it means their own people will suffer. How pitiful is that? I'm deeply concerned about the devastating impacts this bill will have specifically on Medicaid. Medicaid is more than a program. It's a lifeline for millions of Americans, children, mothers, and people with disabilities, seniors, and many of whom are black in our community and rely on the essential health coverage that Medicaid provides. Yes, this bill threatens to slash Medicaid funding in historic ways, causing irreparable harm. Let me be clear. This bill is a billionaire's boondoggle. The top 0.1% will gain on an average of $309,000 in 2027. That's $847 every single day. Did I mention that SNAP benefits are only $6 a day? They get a break of $847 a day. Millionaires will see their pockets lined with an average of $96,400 per year. Meanwhile, families earning less than $50,000 get a laughable $247 annually. Less than $1 a day. This tax cut is for billionaires. Healthcare cuts for families. Billionaires get tax cuts. Poor people just get cut. What's wrong with that picture? The Congressional Budget Office estimates some 17 million Americans will lose their health care because of this ugly bill. Medicaid, SNAP, and ACA marketplace cuts total $1.3 trillion. The exact amount to enrich those making over $500,000 a year. This could have funded and expanded child tax credits, universal pay family leave, and kept millions insured. But The Republicans in this White House chose to lean toward the richest of the rich and to have a reverse Robin Hood, to steal from the poor and give to the rich. Yesterday, I introduced a simple amendment to this bill. It simply said 100% of any Medicaid savings must be invested back into the program. Since my colleagues seem to think that there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse, and we all firmly stand against waste, fraud, and abuse, if you find it, put it back into Medicaid, since you say that you want to strengthen the program. This money should help children, mothers, seniors, and people with disabilities, not pay for billionaire tax scams. But as you might imagine, Republicans shot it down. Why? Because they never, ever cared about Medicaid. They never cared about strengthening the system. They never cared about making it better for generations to come. They only saw it as a honeypot to find money to give tax breaks to the richest of the rich. This was the low-hanging fruit in their estimation. And poor people once again took it on the chin. My Republican colleagues say they want to protect the vulnerable populations and fight waste, fraud, and abuse. But this bill rips health care away from the very people Medicaid was intended to serve. It will shutter nursing homes, close rural hospitals, and blow up state budgets. In my home state of Louisiana, a Republican-led House and Senate passed unanimous resolution saying this bill will kill Louisiana. This is the home of our Speaker.
That's right.
Our Majority Leader. This is a legislature that the Speaker served in along with me, along with Majority Leader Scalise. We all came out of this very body in Louisiana. This body had the wisdom to say, no, this is bad. This is bad for all Louisianians and bad for all Americans. Wake up. Push back. Find that intestinal fortitude to do the right thing. Donald Trump's big, ugly bill is a betrayal of working people, leaving millions hungry, uninsured, and worst of all to fund massive tax breaks for the richest rich. We stand here today unified. We invite others to join us, just 4 more, to come and be brave enough to say that my oath of office is to the people and to the Constitution, not to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and not to any one president. We stand firm.
All right.
Next, I will bring up Representative Gwen Moore.
Go, Gwen.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Troy Carter and all of my colleagues from the Congressional Black Caucus, the conscience of Congress. The Republicans have jammed their bill, renamed the act, because the parliamentarian decided that one big beautiful bill did not meet the guidelines. It didn't pass the bird bath, the bird rule. Even the parliamentarian realizes that this nomenclature is inappropriate for this big ugly bill. I'm a member of the Ways and Means Committee, so I want to talk to you about the math and the budget gimmicks that they have used to sell this to their caucus and to buoy the lies that they have been telling the public. First of all, this bill came back from the United States Senate with $4 trillion worth of debt equaling zero. I don't know how I'm going to explain that to my great-grandchildren. When I try to teach them math, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But they've somehow been able to convince their caucus so far that $4 trillion worth of debt is equal to zero, so that they can meet the budgetary requirements of this budget resolution. I tell you, while they're killing Sesame Street and Big Bird, because all of us and our children who were taught through Sesame Street know better than this, that this math just don't work. This bill will add trillions of dollars to the deficit. And as a matter of fact, over the past, I would say, since the beginning of this century, The debt has primarily occurred because of unpaid for tax cuts. Not because we have spent money on taking care of our people, but because of unpaid for tax cuts. So, while many of the committee members that you see here on the Energy and Commerce Committee that dealt with Medicaid, on the, and also energy credits, you saw people on the Education Committee deal with their mark. Our committee, the Ways and Means Committee, was told to, instead of cutting, they have asked us to add $4.5 trillion to the debt. And boy, I'm telling you, Republicans met their mark and turned the American people into their mark. Instead of using the trifecta, the House, the presidency, and the Senate to lift up not only low-income workers, but middle-class Americans, Republicans chose to prop up the wealthy. And despite the lies that they have told you, the distribution tables prove it, that the majority of these dollars go to the most wealthy. I'll reiterate some of the numbers, but I'll just tell you 60%, 66, 2/3 of the benefit of the tax cuts will go to the top 20%. How many of y'all in the top 20%? All right, we're not going to wait for you to raise your hands because we're not going to get any. None of these people are in the top 20%. And as Mr. Carter pointed out, that the top 1/10%, not 1%, 1/10% gets a $309,000 tax break, while people making under $50,000 get, drum roll, $247. And I'm telling you, Republicans have panicked. They've thrown in stuff like no tax on tips. Of course, you'll still be paying FICA. You will be paying tax on those tips. They're saying that they will not tax seniors on Social Security. That's a lie. You're going to get taxed on Social Security if you earn more than a certain amount. All they're doing is putting a little temporary supplement in to fool you. And, so the swamp math just doesn't work. And the biggest thing that they've done, the biggest lie, the low-income people are going to realize $11,000 increase in their taxes and 72. I don't know where they get these numbers from. They get it because the White House and the Republicans in Congress have agreed that we're going to have never before seen growth from these tax cuts. Well, I'm old enough to know that in the last 45 years of trickle-down theories, that we ain't seen one drop of trickle. And this bill is no different. Tax cuts do not pay for themselves. Every credible economist will tell you that. Republican economists, will tell you that they don't. And how do we pay for this? You'll hear in more detail from other members. How in the world do we pay for it? We pay for it, number one, by fuzzy math. Number two, by demonizing recipients of Medicaid, really calling them waste, fraud, and abuse, where people on Medicaid a 64-year-old woman is going to be required to work in order to get Medicaid or SNAP. And if she's not been determined to be disabled by the Social Security Administration, she'll automatically be deemed to be able-bodied. Okay, I'm coming. Who's going to pay for this cost when we gut SNAP, Medicaid, and ACA? The veterans, foster youth, seniors, children who are going to lose school lunch, 17 million Americans who lose health care. This bill is just morally irresponsible. And I really thank my colleagues for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Gwen.
And I would now like to yield to the person in our caucus. She is a PhD, actually, Dr. Robin Kelly, who is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gwen. Let's give it up for Gwen, y'all.
Woo! Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to Chairwoman Clarke for organizing this press conference as the CBC speaks up and out against this bill. As my colleagues have already said, this bill is cruel and evil. It was ugly when it first passed the House, and then the Senate Republicans made it worse. The big, ugly bill will cost people their lives. That's the bottom line. As you've heard, 17 million Americans will be stripped of their health care. When people lose health care, yes, people die. That's not hyperbole, that's fact. And we know who will be most impacted: Black people. 13.3 million Black people rely on Medicaid. That includes 5.7 million children. And if that isn't bad enough, the consequences of this bill go beyond the individual person. It will impact hospitals, which in turn affect everyone, even if you aren't covered by Medicaid. Emergency rooms will be flooded, or more flooded, I should say. Wait times will increase. Life-saving care will be delayed. Hospitals and healthcare centers will be overwhelmed. This Republican bill will lead to $1.3 billion in uncompensated care costs for hospitals across my home state of Illinois, threatening 9 at-risk rural hospitals across the state. Over 330 hospitals across the country can close. It is never a good time for a hospital to close. But right now, our country is in the middle of a Black maternal mortality crisis. Medicaid covers 65% of the births to Black women. Where will Black women go if they don't have health insurance and there are no hospitals? For many Black women, the answer would be a local health clinic, like Planned Parenthood, that provides cancer screening, birth control, STI testing, and more. But Republicans have long sought to end Planned Parenthood, and they're using this bill to defund it. Nearly half of Black women have received care at one of their clinics. When I was in college, I was one of those Black women. I had moved from New York City to Peoria, Illinois, and I didn't know where else to go for a simple annual checkup. I knew that Planned Parenthood was reliable, affordable, and accessible. Sorry if that's too much information. Our country is also in the midst of another public health crisis: gun violence. Guns have been the leading cause of death for all children and teens since 2020. But guns have been the leading cause of death for Black children since 2006. Instead of protecting children, President Trump shut down the Office of Gun Violence Prevention on day one. They are ending grants for community violence intervention. Republicans are protecting guns, not children. The big ugly bill eliminates restrictions on gun silencers and short-barreled rifles. Gun silencers are not something out of a movie. They create real harm to communities. It should be common sense to regulate such dangerous weapons. But Republicans have made it clear they do not care about Black people or Black lives. Republicans are stealing our health care. They are closing our hospitals and health clinics. They are exacerbating gun violence and maternal mortality. Simply put, this bill is deadly. I'm still voting no. Hell no.
Yeah.
And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague from Connecticut, Johanna Hayes.
Congress Lady, Teacher of the Year. Every year.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I find it hard to believe when I read articles that say that there's a huge percentage of the American public who doesn't even know what's in this bill, because everybody should be paying attention to the profound impact of what is about to happen. For me, the things that I am focused on are the cuts to nutrition and education, programs that our children rely on, all in order to fund tax breaks for the wealthiest individuals who don't even need it. This Republican-led reconciliation bill proposes direct attacks on our youngest generation. The bill is the largest cut ever in history to the SNAP program. Nearly 27% of black families are recipients of SNAP. For those families who are already disproportionately affected by food insecurity, these cuts will further deepen those hardships. When kids lose SNAP benefits, they often lose access to free and reduced lunch at school. There's something called community eligibility provisions, where schools get reimbursed for their students who receive SNAP benefits. So when they lose food at home, they're also losing food at school. This is going to hurt our most vulnerable students and the ones who need it most. Beyond nutrition, this bill targets education. Oh wait, before I even move to education, there's a provision in this bill that is so incredibly cruel. One of my colleagues referred to this as trickle-down cruelty yesterday. So for families who have children, the age of a minor child went from 18 to 9 in the House version and 14 in the Senate version. So on a child's 14th birthday, instead of their mother or their father serving them a birthday cake, which by the way, my colleagues don't want them to be able to buy with SNAP, they need to be out looking for a job. They need to be out finding alternative employment to add to the 1, 2, sometimes 3 jobs they already have because they're about to lose their SNAP benefits. It's beyond cruel. This bill also targets education. I am a teacher. That is what brought me to Congress. And the proposed cuts to the Department of Education would have prevented someone like me from pursuing a higher education and going to school. About 60% of black students rely on Pell Grants. This bill makes it harder for students to access Pell Grants, makes student loans more restrictive. It even eliminates Parent Plus loans and Graduate Plus loans. This is particularly concerning for black students and families who historically rely on these loans to put their kids through college. Yes, we all believe in career and technical education. We all believe that we need a skilled labor force. But we also know that in our poorest communities, we have students, black students, who are extremely bright, and they want to go to college. They want to pursue degrees and go back and help their communities. The changes in this bill would limit access to higher education and professional careers, like nurses, engineers, doctors, dentists, and even teachers, perpetuating cycles of economic disadvantage in our most vulnerable communities. We do not need to make this choice. We can afford to feed children in the United States of America, and even more, we can afford to educate children in the United States of America. These policies are intended to take food out of the mouths of children, to strip away their educational opportunities and reward billionaires. Hungry kids don't learn. It's that simple. The two go hand in hand. That's right. You can't be a good teacher without worrying about what's in a kid's belly. You can't only focus on their brain without focusing on their belly. Imagine a child hungry and unable to learn. Now imagine that same child with a brilliant mind who just needs a shot, who just needs the adults in power to move the obstacles that could make their dreams a reality. Republicans are not just cutting budgets, they're cutting futures. That's right. They're cutting off the right of every child in this nation to dream big. They're cutting off the rights of black children to achieve their highest aspirations. This bill is an act of malice. I reject this irresponsible legislation. I will vote no because I will never use my voice, my vote, or my privilege right now of serving in Congress to hurt children. We have a moral responsibility to ensure that every child has access to nutritious food and a high-quality education. And if you think this doesn't affect you, wait 5 minutes. Your neighbors, your friends, your communities, your families will be decimated by the effects of this reckless, irresponsible piece of legislation. In this country, no child, no senior, no veteran, No person who works every day should go to bed hungry. And in this Congress, we have the ability to make sure that that does not happen. So stick around. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know if we're going to be here for the 4th of July, for Labor Day, for Thanksgiving, but I'll stay as long as it takes because I will not put a card in that machine and vote to take food out of the mouths of hungry children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kamlager-Dove.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sydney Kamlager-Dove. I'm the Congresswoman for the 37th Congressional District. I am standing here with my colleagues from the Congressional Black Caucus. We are the Congressional Black Receipts Caucus because we are bringing receipts about what is in this bill. Let me tell you something. There is no Republican Party bus coming up here to the Capitol because they know that they are being charged with selling snake oil that's coming out of the White House. We have a president that is more committed to selling fragrances than he is to telling the truth. And they are negotiating with this person about bending the knee to him rather than bending the knee to the constituents. And in our district, in every single district across this country, 85% of voters in every single district want Medicaid, want SNAP, want these programs that they are cutting. And these Republicans should be listening to their constituents. Earlier today, every single member of the Congressional Black Caucus stood up to ask for unanimous consent to strip away the amendments to Medicaid and SNAP. And Virginia Fox didn't even have the decency or the integrity to stand up with each request and deny it. She sat there like a tumor. But over 100 members led by the Congressional Black Caucus got up and raised the issue because Medicaid and SNAP are too important, not just to our communities, not just to our constituents, but to this country. This administration wants to separate us by race so they can divide us by class. But let me tell you something. If you cut Medicaid, you're going to close hospitals. You're going to close urgent cares. You're going to close community clinics. And folks, even if they get sick, when they get sick, they are going to show up to those places. And if they are open, it's going to cost everyone who doesn't have Medicaid more. And if they do close, they are going to find their way to an emergency room near you and drive up your costs. So why don't we recognize that we're all connected? I'm going to tell you something. This administration is lying when they tell you they have a provision that says no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Let me tell you something. It's not about zero taxes. It's a minor deduction. And I've been up for many long hours, so I'm a little fuzzy. But what I can tell you is his math is equally fuzzy. And it is so fuzzy and complicated that working folks who rely on tips, who rely on overtime, might only end up taking an additional $10 home. How is $10 going to help you? It's not, especially when the richest of the rich are getting tax breaks of up to $300,000. I had an amendment that say, if you really care about the working people, then make this tax cut permanent rather than temporary, only for the time that you're in office, Donald Trump. But Republicans don't want to support that. Make no mistake, this bill is going to make America more sick, more broke, and more hungry. while the top 1%, 0.1%, walks away with over $300,000 in tax breaks every year. And the average American will take home less than $250. And $250 doesn't mean shit to somebody on a tight budget trying to decide how much of the utility bill can they pay, if they can pay all of the rent and buy all of the food and get the diapers and the incidentals and the emergencies that crop up. And Donald Trump doesn't know what it means to hope for an extra $250. It doesn't go very far when you have a family of 4 that you have to feed. I'm going to say it again. Over 85% of voters in every single district want Medicaid, want SNAP. And now the new provisions in the Senate version that we have to vote on will also cut into Medicare. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say this. Elections have consequences, and we are dealing with the consequences of what happened in 2024. But mean it when I tell you that the Black Caucus is turning into the Receipt Caucus, because we want everyone to know what is in this bill. We want everyone to know how they will be impacted. We want everyone to know how more broke, how more hungry, how more sick they are going to become. And we need to be holding these receipts up to and through 2026 and holding these Republicans accountable. Why aren't they here with balloons and megaphones touting how beautiful this thing is? Because they know it stinks, just like the cologne that they are selling in the White House. I'm going to bring it back to Chair Clarke to close.
Well, let me again just thank all of my colleagues. Their expertise, their understanding of what's in the big ugly is what we want to share with the American people. At this point, I want to open the floor to any of our reporters who have any questions. Yes, and just state your name and your outlet.
Michael Johnson, Once Upon a Hill. Thank you, Chair Clarke, for doing this. The Senate added a $50 billion hospital fund for rural states and districts to mitigate some of the concerns that senators had about the cuts to Medicaid to their rural constituents. Obviously, there are a lot of health disparities that you all deal with in some of your suburban and urban districts and states. Can you just speak about how, are you concerned that those constituents will be left behind if the House is successful in passing this bill that includes this $50 billion rule?
This is a very dangerous bill. Yeah, they're going to try to sweeten the pot with all kinds of gimmicks. At the end of the day, rural, suburban, urban, all of our healthcare institutions are at peril under this bill.
But they wouldn't need it.
Oh, okay, hold on.
$50 million to address. $50 billion. $50 billion is still woefully short. When you talk about rural hospitals throughout the country, I will give you my home state as a test case. When I was in the state Senate, we expanded Medicaid. We instantly started opening rural hospitals. People started getting on the rolls. The same will be true in reverse. That $50 billion will not even scratch the surface throughout our entire country. It is nothing more than window dressing and used to allure and to entice those voters, those members of the Senate who had the courage for a moment to stand up. They've been thrown a little piece of red meat to sell out the rest of the country. It will not do the job. People will still die. Hospitals will still close.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you comment on, I saw the CDC did the Congo line, led the Congo line.
We did a conscience line.
I hear you. So are you going to do is there anything else you can do to delay this? Was that pretty much it under the rules of the House? Can you talk about that?
Well, first of all, we will continue to protest what is taking place under the Trump administration. We will do everything within our power, within the procedures of the floor, to make sure that the American people are educated, informed, and understand where this harm is coming from. Our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, as Congresswoman Kamala Duff has said, have been lying through their teeth to make sure that they can benefit the billionaire class in America. At the end of the day, the vast majority of Americans will be devastated if this bill were to pass.
But also, can I
Hold
just
on one
say,
moment. Joanna Hayes.
they're their own problem. We good. We've all voted. We're here. We're doing what we have to do. We got a procedural amendment, an easy vote. This isn't even the hard vote. That's been open for 103 minutes because they can't get their members to vote to add an amendment about debate. So the question, I guess, needs to be directed at them. They can't even, if this bill is as beautiful as you say it is, if you have a mandate and an assignment, then turn it in. We're here. All these members have come back. Every Democrat is on record having voted. Tally, Democrats, 212. We're here. I don't understand how in between votes, they lose 20, 30 members and then have to rally them back. So we understand the assignment and we're here doing what we have to do. They're their own problem right now.
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to say this. We have to manage people's expectations. There are only certain tools in the toolbox, but one of the tools we do have is telling the truth. And the truth is every single person will be impacted if this bill is passed. And we know that he is twisting people's arms, but we also know that Medicaid, that healthcare fuels economies. And when you're cutting healthcare, when you're cutting Medicaid, you're also cutting jobs. That's why folks are up in arms. They're trying to figure out how to square the circle. And the circle does not square with this math. The circle does not square. So we're here. We're going to vote. They're running. They're in their offices. They're drinking whiskey. They're at the White House. They are trying to figure out how to switch the narrative so that they can pivot away from the truth. But the truth is every single person will be impacted. You will either have your health care cut or you will have your costs go up.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for enduring the heat and getting our message out today. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the day.
He's not here, but